All right. As we are live, hello, and we're going to start off with separation. Again, using is Alchemy workbook, The Sorcerer's Stone by Dennis William Haas, digital. So you can hear the dogs in the background. So to start off with, we have the separation phase of alchemy. And this is the symbol for it. This is a stylized image of separation by air. And this phase is our plexus chakra. The planet is Mars, and the zodiac sign is Scorpio. And that's so separation is a phase where you might be surprised that it's actually ruled by Mars. And the tarot card key associated with this is the star key. And what we can see here in the star key is a woman, and she's got two different vessels. She's pouring one into the water and one onto the land. And the one on the land breaks into 5 different streams, which is representing the 5 different elements, 5 different senses. And so this is the divine masculine here on the land. This is the divine feminine pouring into the water. And this is actually for meditation. You can see here there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 stars. And those 7 stars are for the 7 chakras. So separation is a phase that's really about that you actually have this experience where it's difficult. Meditation, when you first start into getting into it. Hello, Meg. Nice to see you. Yes, I'm well. So meditation, when you first start to get into it, is pretty difficult. And that's why separation and Mars goes together, because this is actually a phase where soul and spirit fight one another. So basically, in the last phase, in the black phase of purification, you had this breakdown. You had the devil card key, which represented being stuck in samsara, of the willingness to just focus on the 5 senses. And then you had the tower card key that represented being in a breakdown, things falling apart. And now we have the star key, which represents meditation. And this is the second for this third phase, separation. We have the star key, which represents meditation. And the third phase is connected with Mars and the solar plexus chakra. Now, you may be surprised and think, but what happens in this phase is soul and spirit are actually fighting each other. This is usually symbolized by Mercury standing between the king and the queen, who look like they're having a disagreement. And what is happening here is that, am I losing my connection again? What's happening here is that the mind is fighting itself. And so it's a period of time where you struggle. One of the things that happens in meditation is that it is a bit of a struggle where you are focusing on a particular task, or you're doing mindful meditation where you are trying to clear your mind and release your thoughts. And what will happen is that your mind goes off in different things. So if you're sitting doing mindfulness meditation, for example, it's a very clear mind. Instead of having a clear, silent mind, what happens is that you'll be thinking about what you need for dinner. You'll think about the chores that you need to do. In Sakyong Mipham's book, Turning the Mind into the Alley, he calls the mind wind horse. And that's because it's like a horse. Every time you try to get a hold of it, it just carries you away. And that is meditation. That is the star key. As you're trying to clear your mind, when it comes to meditation, unless you can meditate, you can't follow the path of the seeker, basically. You can't follow alchemy. You have to be able to concentrate. and focus your mind. Now, for separation, I do have a few quotes here. So separation delivers the retrieved spiritual essence safely through the process of calcination and dissolution to its final incarnation, which is earthly conjunction. The two elements, soul and spirit, are at war with one another. Hi, KK. It's good to see you. Oh, we have a few people. Hello, everyone. My internet connection was a little bad there for a moment, so I think it was trying to kick everybody out. So when you first start to meditate, you have a little bit of a difficulty. Hi, KK. Thank you for the heart. It's good to see my friends here. Hello, CG. It's of two different stages of alchemy, separation and conjunction. And with separation, the symbol for it is this here, and it's a stylized image of separation. You can see the spiral there. And what you're separating is the soul from spirit. So the first two phases of alchemy, the black phase, we had calcination, and we had, now I'm going to blank on the name, calcination. It was the Tower card key and the, here. Calcination and dissolution were the first two stages in the black phase, which are purification. And so you start off with fire and water. And that is the devil key and the tower key. And now we're at separation in the white phase. And in the white phase of alchemy, we start off with meditation. So we've taken the different parts from the black phase of alchemy, from ourselves, the soul and the spirit, and we start to find some middle ground. But this first phase of meditation, of the star card key, is really one of action. What happens a lot of times is that your mind just takes off from you. It will just carry you away. Sakyong Mipham, in his book Turning the Mind into an Alley, which I really recommend for people interested in meditation, he describes it as wind horse. It's like trying to get on a horse that's made of wind. And it's very difficult at first. To silence the mind, to be able to focus, laser focus on something is difficult. That's one of the reasons why active meditation, which is used in alchemy, is recommended. That way you can focus on a particular task, focus on a particular subject. And in separation, Dennis William Huck explains, if the preceding, separation is the isolation of the desired components from the previous two purification operations, calcination and dissolution. In the laboratory, the components of the polluted solution from dissolution are separated out by filtration, cutting, settling, or agitation with air. Any genuine or unworthy material is then discarded. The alchemical symbol for separation is a stylized cipher representing the process of filtration. And so meditation is a filtration process. And it's through meditation you realize you're not actually your thoughts. Your mind is something different than what you originally thought. And you realize that you're this consciousness that is witnessing the thoughts and capable of dismissing them, capable of basically letting them go as they come up. One of the processes of meditation that I use, that I've described on my channel before, is to simply label a thought, and then imagine releasing it like it was a dove. So when a thought comes up, especially a negative thought, you just simply go, thought, and you imagine releasing it, and it goes away from you. And the more that you're able to control your mind, and it's not really controlling, it's just being present with the emotions, presence with the thoughts. You allow them to pass through you. You allow them to exist, but you don't need them. You don't hold on to them. When you have a particular thought that's troubling, you can just release it immediately. Learn from it. Say, what has this thought brought to me? And if it is something that is not beneficial, just release it. So separation is where you really start to feel the difference between consciousness and thoughts and thinking. And you become aware of the difference between the conscious and the subconscious. The subconscious is simply a presence. It is this knowingness that is simply there, that just exists. And what happens is eventually, as you're more present, as you're able to focus on that presence, the thoughts start to silence. They start to go quiet. At first, though, it's that war, it's that Mars energy. Separation is ruled by Mars. And it's because when you first sit down and try to hold your place, when you try to find your center, it's very easy to get lost in the process of basically trying to not think. And wonderful things to do is mindfulness meditations and to do active meditations. In Alchemy, the active meditation is breath work. And D.W. Huck has a beautiful one to use. It's alchemistic aeration. Aside from the psychological techniques, there are a number of physical methods for bodily separation. Some of these methods date back over 3,500 years to Egyptian alchemists who taught spiritual breathing techniques in the city of Akhenaten. These methods centered on working with a subtle life force that, according to the Emerald Tablet, the wind carries in its belly. Known in Indian alchemy as prana and the Taoist alchemy as qi. This vital breath is responsible for a person's state of health and can also be harnessed for his or her psycho-spiritual transformation. Most of us would agree on examining our breathing rhythms that they are related to mental states. Emotions of fear, love, and embarrassment all cause changes in our breathing, as does boredom, inspiration, calmness, and other intellectual qualities. And many actors have learned how to turn emotions on and off by eliciting the appropriate breathing patterns. Alchemistic aeration directs and stores it can be used by the spiritual seeker. The goal is to become thrice greatest at breathing and manifest life force on all three levels of the lungs. Most of us have fallen into the habit of breathing on one level, thus depriving themselves of vital energy. The stomach breather fills the lower part of the lungs. The rib breather, who uses only the intercostal muscles of the ribs, fills the pulmonary midsection with air. And the top breather, who raises the shoulders and collarbone when taking in air, fills only the uppermost portion of the lungs. When exhaling, most people squeeze out only the top of the lungs, causing stagnation of the tiny air sacs in the lungs and limiting the amount of fresh air that can be taken in. The ideal breather aerates the entire lung cavity on every breath and empties it completely during exhalation. To try this yourself, sit upright in a chair and relax. Using the diaphragm, take a deep breath while expanding the stomach, followed by a slow expansion of the rib cavity and culminating in upper lung breathing that can be felt all the way into the throat. Then exhale completely, starting at the base of the lungs and climaxing at the top. Exhalation should take twice as long as inhalation. For example, practice inhaling for a count of 8 and exhaling for a count of 16, while concentrating on filling and emptying all three levels of the lungs. So that is a beautiful active meditation that you can do, where you actually fill the lungs up, release them completely. And that will give you something to focus on. You focus on your breath, you're focusing on that consciousness, and you're able to really focus deeply, and it will help, believe me, you will connect deeply, and it will help you focus on just being present. And the more you can just be present and not really worry about the laundry, what chores you need to do, what your mother would say about doing these strange breathing techniques. Whatever it is that's on your mind, when you practice these meditations, it calms, grounds, and centers you. And at first, when you first try these practices, when you first start meditating, you're going to have those issues where your mind wanders off, your mind goes in different directions. And that is the reason why separation is ruled by Mars. And Mars is the planet, Scorpio is the zodiacal sign for separation. And again, the symbol is the stylized filtration for this level. And the phrase is the wind carries it in its belly. Now, that is an interesting phrase of the Emerald Tablet. And let me actually, I was thinking I should start by reading the Emerald Tablet. Let me read the Emerald Tablet to you, because we are following it line by line. It should be in here. The Emerald Tablet is basically what describes the different levels of alchemy. And we have already done the first two, which was the father is the sun and its mother is the moon. And now we have the wind carries it in the belly. So this is the air phase. So this is connected to air. And that means that the star card is also connected to air. And as I explained at the beginning, this card is the card of meditation. It has here the 7 stars are the 7 chakras that align when you're meditating. And that's a wonderful way to meditate, is to focus on your chakras. And here we have one urn that's being poured onto the land, which breaks into 5 rivers, which is the 5 senses. And we have one urn being poured into the water, which is the subconscious. And so we have a representation of the conscious mind, which is the divine masculine, solar energy, or gold. And we have a representation of the feminine, lunar, silver. And let's see. Should be able to find this pretty easily. I meant to put this down, but unfortunately today I went to visit someone and I'm a little bit rushed for doing this live. I meant to start it at 3 and ended up being here on 4. I hear my little one calling me. I know I have the whole Emerald Tablet in here. Give me one moment to find it. Mm-hmm. The Emerald Tablet. In truth, without deceit, certain and most veritable. That which is below corresponds to that which is above, and that which is above corresponds to that which is below, to accomplish the miracles of the one thing. And just as all things have come from this one thing, through the meditation of one mind, so do all created things originate from this one thing, through transformation. Its father is the sun. That was the first operation of calcination. Its mother, the moon. That's the second order. That is the dissolution phase, or step, of alchemy. And now we're at the wind carries it in its belly. Its nurse is the earth. It is the origin of all, the consecration of the universe. Its inherent strength is perfected if it turns into earth. Separate the earth from fire, the subtle from the gross, gently and with great ingenuity. It rises from earth to heaven and descends again to earth, thereby combining with itself the powers of the above and the below. Thus will you obtain the glory of the whole universe. All obscurity will be clear to you. This is the greatest force of all powers, because it overcomes every subtle thing and penetrates every solid thing. In this way the universe created. From this comes many wondrous applications, because this is the pattern. And so in the pattern we're at separation, which again, this is where spirit and soul are fighting each other. And this is where you meditate and you really start to cause these two to come together. You're aware of the difference between the spirit and the soul. And the difference between spirit and soul, spirit, it is the divine feminine mixed into the consciousness. It's the collective consciousness. It is that which is present and capable of just being, of just existing. So when you're in meditation, you tune into spirit. You tune into all that is, that oneness energy. That is the presence that you feel. Now the conscious mind, the solar, gold, divine masculine aspect, is the part of us that has the 5 senses, the part of us that feels cold as you're sitting in the room, the part of you that is thinking, I'd like to know what I'm going to have for dinner, the part of you that is thinking of, maybe the surface that you're sitting on. That is the divine masculine conscious self, the thinking self, the intellect. And the intellect is the solar quality. Whatever you turn your mind upon becomes revealed. It brings light to it. And so when you start to sit in meditation and you invite that oneness quality, that subconscious in, and you start to be present and dwell in that place of knowingness instead of that place of I am, of experiencing, there's a battle between the two. Are you your thoughts? Are you this presence? And the answer is you are both. You are the consciousness and the subconscious. You are in both states at once. I made a video about individuation and the unity consciousness. And it is definitely possible to be in both on a daily basis. Because once again, we came here to individuate and then to also know that we are one with all. So the next stage in the white phase of alchemy, well, first, the wind carries it in its belly. This suggests a pregnancy. So here is where the divine child becomes pregnant. That new consciousness starts to form when you enter into meditation. It starts to exist because you become aware that you're not your thoughts. You become aware that you are just this pure state of consciousness. Instead of the five senses, you are this awareness of itself. And so this is the start, the pregnancy phase of the alchemical process. And you're pregnant with the divine child. And the divine child will be the golden pill, the elixir, the philosopher's stone in later stages. But this is the first taste you have of that, the first beginning of a new consciousness starting to take hold within your mind. Is conjunction. The phrase is, its nurse is the earth, it's the heart chakra, it's Tiferath, which is, and Diath on the Kabbalah tree of life. And then it's Venus and copper, and Taurus is the zodiacal sign. Now we go from this warring state of separation, where the two have been separated, where we get our first idea that there are two different levels of consciousness within our mind. And now in conjunction, we bring them back together. So we pulled them apart in the first two stages. In the purification stage, we had them fall apart, that breakdown in the black phase, the negredo. And now here in the white phase, we had them separated. We became aware that there are two parts to our consciousness. And now we're bringing them back. And this has to do with the heart chakra. And this is a consciousness all of its own. There are people who only work with the heart chakra and that consciousness energy. And that is just one level that you can reach on this path. And Venus is obviously the goddess of love. But copper, the metal of this, is conductive. And so now we have a conductive energy. We have an energy that's flowing. Whereas Mars and steel in the separation phase was not conductive. It's very cold, it's very separating. Now we have this conductive energy, this loving energy. And conjunction, the two come together. The red king, the solar masculine, and the divine feminine. And the way that we obtain this level is actually shadow work. We start to bring into our mind the awareness of all of our habits, our patterns, our routines, and we start to question them. When you are in meditation, you start to become aware of patterns that come up at certain times. They rise like a wave and they threaten to carry you off. But as you become aware of it, you become more aware of the habits that you have when it comes to thinking. And in conjunction, you can eliminate those patterns and those thoughts that are not of the highest nature. So shadow work is essentially bringing the subconscious into your consciousness. And this is the phase where the sun feeds the moon. And that means is that we're turning our consciousness onto the moon. And the moon reflects back anything that the sun shines on it, right? It's reflected sunlight that we see when we see the moon. And so we become more aware of our thoughts, more of our senses. We become more aware of how our thinking takes us, where it takes us to. If we're on a negative frame of mind, what we bring into our reality is negative. And we start to see that. We start to see those negative thoughts. And because we've turned our consciousness to them, we can dismiss them, we can let them go. First, you have to learn what the message is from them. So, take for example, if you had overbearing parents who were overly involved in your life. And so you have a certain thought that comes in every time that you think of your parents, or every time you do a task that reminds you of your parents. You think, I need to do this way. The more that you release that thought, the more that you dismiss it, knowing that it does not serve you, then you can eventually train yourself not to have that thought. It just simply goes away. That particular type of programming is dismissed from your mind. And so, in conjunction, what you're really doing is illuminating the subconscious. You're bringing the subconscious into the surface of your mind. You're becoming aware of all of your subconscious programming that hasn't served you. And you are also becoming aware of the subconscious programming that does serve you, and you're able to amplify that. In conjunction is the alchemical marriage. Now, there's not a lot talked about when it comes to the alchemical marriage. I forgot to show. The key card is the moon. And I love this card. This card shows the entire path of the seeker. But you can see the conjunction here because there's the sun and the moon. It is supposed to be just the moon, supposedly, but it really does have the sun there. And that's one of the reasons why I said the tarot is so deep and they included so much in it. Then you can see where the conjunction is, and it brings the two halves together. But in this card, we see the entire spiritual path of the seeker. We have the animal kingdom, we have the plant kingdom, and we have rocks, so we have the mineral kingdom. And then, of course, we have the two towers that are created by the humans. So we have the four kingdoms of the earth realm here. And we start off like this little crawfish here, crawling out of the abyss. That's pretty much the Nigredo phase, is we're coming out of the abyss. We're coming out of this samsara, this cycle of death and rebirth that we don't really understand, but we're addicted to. We keep coming back for a reason, and we keep breaking down for a reason. So we emerge from the subconsciousness, and we go along our path here. And we have the wolf, which is undomesticated, and the domesticated dog. And this represents the two halves of our mind. Spirit is the wolf, and the dog is the mind, the conscious self. We can make the conscious self loyal. The wolf has its own energy. We can't really master spirit so much, except for we can experience spirit. And so I love this card because it does show, it goes all the way up to the mountain where the hermit waits to show us our way. So I love the moon card key, and I love that this is in conjunction, and then we can is where, like I said, you bring the aspect of spirit and soul together, and you have basically the oneness consciousness starts to dawn upon you. Now, we won't see the birth of the divine child until the yellow phase of alchemy. But this is really the phase where you become aware of the separation between spirit and soul. And a lot of people confuse the two of them. And that's okay, because you have to really be on the path of the seeker to understand them. Now, when it comes to conjunction, let me read to you what E.W. Huck said. I love his work, and I love this alchemy workbook. In conjunction, it says, if the preceding three operations were transformation, the vessel of transformation is your body. That is the vessel that holds both the spirit and a combination of those saved elements into a new substance. In general terms, conjunction is the paradoxical union of the archetypal elements of fire, water, and air to produce earth. The symbol for conjunction is a stylized cipher representing the union of opposing compounds or essences to produce an entirely new thing. And I have that here. So this is conjunction. This is the symbol for it. And you can see the two here. So you imagine this is the lunar silver feminine, and this is the divine masculine gold solar energies. And it's producing something. It looks almost like grapes coming down here. And what it's producing is the divine child, a new state of consciousness. So these two phases are all about becoming familiar with your spirit and your soul and understanding the difference between the two of them, reintegrated back together to create something new. But this isn't the step, the white step, beta phase, is spelled albedo, A-L-B-E-D-O. This isn't the phase where the divine child is born or the new consciousness is born. This is the phase where you start to realize that there's a possibility of some other way. Because oftentimes, like that Mars in separation, that Mars energy, the two fight with each other. Sorry, I'm a little froggy, so I'm going to have a little bit of slurpee. So did that make sense? How are all of you doing out there? Everybody is so quiet in the chat. So this is the coming together of the divine masculine and divine feminine, the subconscious and the consciousness, the solar and lunar elements, gold and silver. Now, this is the major effort, conjunction is the major effort in the alchemist's life, is the creation of this unified self, which can withstand the onslaught of ignorance, insensitivity, and illusion one encounters in the world. And so this is the marriage of the sun and the moon. Let's see here. I wanted to share with you this process between the black and the white phase. And so we're now at the phase and we're creating this new consciousness. Thank you, CG. We're creating this new consciousness by being aware of the spirit and the soul within us. Now, not many people reach this point in the process. A lot of people stay in the Negredo phase, in the purification phase of the Tower and the Devil card, where they're stuck within the five senses. But here we've separated the two. We know that there's the part of us that experiences the earthly realm, experiences the five senses. And again, you can see that in the star card because you have the 5 rivers here on earth. And then you have the subconscious, which is the ocean. And so this is where you really gain that awareness. And this is the part where basically you start to create that new consciousness, which I'm very excited to discuss. And so I think that's pretty much it. You want to say anything before I head out? Oh, we got all 4 of you back. I probably will go in here in a few moments unless you guys have any questions, because I covered everything I wanted to. Oh, I did want to cover the Azoth image. So in the Azoth image, this is an alchemical mandala that would be used to meditate. You're welcome, KK. It's really good to see you here. So this is used to meditate. And so we have here, to start off with, let me look at it real quick. We start off here, and this is calcination. This is in the Negredo phase. And corpus means the body. And so we have here calcination, which was to the bone. So we have the bird of spirit bird. It's not capable of flight, and it's only focused on the earth. And then calcination, we went to the bone. We got to the basic mineral aspects of the material. We went to the basic 3 elements. And those 3 elements, in alchemy, they are, blanking on the names, and I know this like the back of my hand. The 3 essentials are, oh my gosh, can't believe I'm blanking on something so basic. The 3 essentials are sulfur, salt, and mercury. So we start off with to the bone means basically isolating the sulfur, salt, and mercury. Sulfur is the soul. Salt is the body. I think we're back. keep losing connection here. Those are the bones that is shown here. So we see the bird, the spirit, the grounded bird of spirit, and the bones. So we have the salt and the spirit here. And then we have the bird of spirit here that's also black in the Grado phase, looking at spirit. So this is the soul looking at spirit. It perceives itself. And here we have the two separated, and we have a 5-pointed crown that it's raising up. And this is in the separation phase. And that 5-pointed crown represents the divine child, this new state of consciousness. I'm sorry, we have drinking of the spirit of water. The two are separated. We have them lifting up the crown, the divine child. And this is conjunction. Spirit goes from black and grounded to white and separated in these two phases. And that's in the eyes of that mandala. And all right. I think that's everything I wanted to go over, because it's no longer the earthbound bird. And that was one of my notes. So yeah, that's the beta phase of alchemy. It really comes down to meditation and starting to have that inner sense of the difference between the soul and the spirit. We're about 41 minutes here. Did anybody? This is kind of the fun phase because we had the breakdown. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Okay. Did you want me to cover here? I know there was a lot of glitching. I was kind of disconnected there for a minute. So hopefully it won't disconnect again. So in the Azoth image, here, the black grounded bird of spirit. And here in calcination, we went down to the bone. We isolated the three essentials: sulfur, salt, and mercury, which is the body, the mind, and the soul. Then here we have the separation start in dissolution. In dissolution, during the tower phase, which is a tower moment, which is a dark night of the soul, is when we first have that first blush, that first perception of spirit. We begin to know that there is something more. This is where the Mandela effect comes in. This is where waking up, okay, I thought reality worked this way, but this reality is different from what I thought. That is the dissolution phase, and that's what you're seeing here is there's little signs from spirit, little synchronicities that happen that give us a clue that there's something strange going on. Is it still glitching? Oh, that's a bummer. It's not glitching on my end. I wonder what's going on. Is it running slow? It might be my internet connection. Okay. So it's running slow. My internet seems to be having some issues. Hopefully in the replay it'll make some more sense. There's nothing much I can do about that, unfortunately. That's cutting the sound out. Oh, that's... All right. I think in the replay it's going to make a lot more sense. Although I had a few moments where I was a little slow when I was describing it and like remembering what salt, sulfur, and mercury ways. So we start off with calcium, which is to the bones. Your connection is slow as well, CG? Okay. And re-brought me back. So I had to hit the retry button a couple of times, which is not good. But we'll go ahead and try to go through this here. So this is the bird of spirit, and it's earthbound in the first phase, in the Negrado phase. It's earthbound spirit. And we went to the bone. So we isolated the three essentials. And those three essentials are mercury, salt, and sulfur, which translates to the mind, body, and spirit. Then in the dissolution phase, the tower moment, the moment of awakening for most people, well, the opportunity to awaken, because not everybody wakes up during a tower moment. But in that moment, we have the earthbound bird noticing the first blush of the spirit bird, the white bird. And then both birds turn white. and they're drinking up the spiritual water in separation. They're both partaking in spirit. And that's the first time that there's a realization that there's a mind and body and spirit. And then you have the two birds, the soul and spirit, lifting the five-pointed crown, which is the divine child. And that is conjunction. And how I provide see where soul and spirit start to work together, where you start to realize when it is that you should be in soul and when you should be in spirit. And the two actually start to, they conjoin, they combine back together in a new way that will give birth to the divine child. So this is the stage of the alchemical marriage. Really important in alchemy. It's the marriage of the silver and the gold. The silver being the subconscious mind, the gold being the conscious mind. Together is when you actually gain unity consciousness. So, and Taurus, of course, is the heart chakra zodiac sign associated. Really come off as genuine. People appreciate that. It's an energy that is hard to convey to people. But you start to have that new unity consciousness where you are aware of your connection to others. You're aware of all that is. And I'm excited to share with you guys. I know this time I got back to 4 o'clock and I went to visit a friend of mine. So that is it. Thank you for joining me. And if you have any questions, go ahead and add them here at the end. Hopefully I made sense. And thank you for listening to me ramble, and thank you for joining me. But I am going to let you guys go. Bye. Oh. Each chakra matches up with an old manuscript with the heart one. It's in the middle. Yes. Yeah, it is definitely, the heart is definitely in the middle. It's interesting that it's the 4th stage of alchemy. And it's the 4th up. And in most systems, whether you're looking at the chakra system, you're looking at the 3 bottom and 3 top, exactly. It's the balance point. And those, indeed, the heart center, exactly. And you have self-esteem. Those are the 3 levels associated with the Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which coincides with the 7 chakras as well. And so those 3 lower chakras are the animal chakras, the chakras where if you don't have those needs met, you're not able to go into the heart chakra. Now, for some people, we start up open at the top and we have to work our ways down. But both triangles of the symbol for the stone makes the Star of David when put on top of each other too. Yes, so the top triangle would be the top 3 chakras, and the bottom triangle is the lower 3 chakras. Yeah, exactly. That is, yeah, that is definitely true. It is the 3 chakras on the top and the 3 chakras together on the bottom, conjoining together to create that 5th element, the quintessence. And the quintessence is that unity consciousness. It is that new. Absolutely great observation. And I want to say it's Eli Was Moonites. A pretty name. Eli Was. Does that sound right? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But yes, it's the combination. It's when the lower chakras and the upper chakras are united together. And for some people, well, from the majority of people, I believe, from what I've read, usually they have to start at the root base chakra and work their way up. A lot of people are disconnected at the root and they live in their root chakra for most of their experience. And that is the fascination stage. That is the devil card. That is being changed to your 5 senses, trying to gratify those 5 senses, thinking that it'll be the answer to your problems. But then when you rise up into the heart, then you are able to make those connections. if that makes sense. And any more comments or questions? It makes total sense that conjunction would be in the heart center because of the fact that the heart center is so powerful. And of course, with the two coming together, the solar king and this lunar queen, it would make sense that it would happen in the heart and that it would be connected to the planet Venus and coincide with that fourth level. And I do recommend checking out the card keys, the star card and the moon card keys in my playlist, because I go into a lot more of what these are and what they mean, this soul and the spirit. And like I said, at first it's a battle. It's a battle to meditate. It's a battle to take the time to meditate. But it's so worth it when you have the effort there and you start to become aware that you're not your thoughts, that you're not your emotions, that you are something more, and that you connect into something more, even though that seems intangible at first. And at first it seems very uncomfortable to be in that state of being where you don't have anything to do. You don't have anything on your mind. You're just pure, raw presence. It is a beautiful state of being to be in. But I'm going to head out. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. It's been about an hour. And we'll see you next weekend. Once I can find out how to exit. There we go.